Okay, hello Mr. Pigeon's class, calc class, since we're nerds. Anyways, I did my problem on graphing rational equations, and there's 5 different steps to graphing rational equations, but first you have to look at the equation that is given. So this equation is f of x equals 2x plus 5 and x squared over x minus 6 squared times x plus 3. Now, to graph this, you first need to find your x-intercepts. How you find those is you look at the top of the equation and you see what makes x turn into 0. So seeing here, negative 5 makes x turn into 0. So x equals negative 5, and then you also look at the second set of parentheses, and then that would make it turn into 0. Now, I am circling this because it's an even multiplicity. Sorry, that's thunder. It's really storming at my house. Anyways, an even multiplicity means that it bounces off of the x-intercept. So that's just a handy thing to let you all know. For number 2, you look at the vertical asymptotes. This is what makes the bottom turn into 0, and this is what x cannot be, since the bottom of a fraction cannot be 0. So x cannot be 6, and I circle 6 because it's an even multiplicity, and 3. I don't circle 3 because it crosses the x-intercept because it only has n multiplicity of 1. For my third one, I draw an info wave, a really quick one. So you would draw your line real quick. Oh, and for the top ones, for the ones that can be x, are dots. And I'm going to draw the ones that cannot be x and x. So I would start out right here at negative 5 and draw a dot. Negative 3, x. 0, a dot, and 6, and that's an x. Now you are ready to draw your line for your info wave. So you always start on the right, and to figure out if you start at the top or bottom, you look at your fraction as a whole. Is it positive or negative? Looking here, you see that it is positive. So I would start at the top. You know that 0 and 6 bounce. So as you start to go down to 0, you bounce off of it. Does 0 bounce? It does. So you would bounce off of 0 also. 3 crosses and negative 5 crosses. And that's where your info wave stops. Now, for the fourth one, you look and see your horizontal asymptotes. This means you look at the exponents and which ones are bigger. Knowing that if the top is bigger, it goes to infinity. And if the bottom is bigger, it goes to the leading term. It goes to 0, I'm so sorry. If the bottom is bigger, it goes to 0. And if it's the same, it goes to the leading term, which are the coefficients. So looking here, x times x squared would be x to the third, and then this one, x squared times x would be x to the third. So those both cancel out, and then you look at the leading terms. It'd be 2 over 1, which means your horizontal asymptote equals 2. Now you are ready to sketch your graph. I am going to start out by, sorry, I'm not the best at drawing, but I'm going to start out by labeling some things. So draw your graph real quick, your y and x axis, and then you start filling in everything that needs to be filled in. So you draw 6. These are what x cannot be. So that means that there's a vertical asymptote. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's a vertical asymptote. So I would draw a vertical asymptote. And then there's another vertical asymptote at negative 3. 1, 2, 3, negative 3. Draw that. It's really storming outside. plot your points. So we know that that's 0. And then, so there is something at 0, which means it bounces. And there is something at -5, -3, -4, -5. And that one crosses through. And now we know that there's a horizontal asymptote at 2. So we draw that. 1, 2. Draw our line. And now you are ready to graph. So, how you graph is you always start at the right and you look at your info wave to tell you where you are. So, beyond 6, you are at the top. And the only way you can cross this asymptote or the x-axis is if you have a point there. Well, there's no point here. And you have to stay above the x-axis, which means that you can come right here and go like, you can just draw like a little parabola thing sideways, but you got to keep it stupid simple. So you would always start at the top, and there's nothing that we can cross through, so we would have to start approaching this line. So that's that first one. At 6 is an even multiplicity, so when it's even like that, they continue the same way. If this wasn't an even multiplicity, this line would start at the bottom, but since it is, we start at the top. So we know we start up here, and then there is a point at 0, so we have to cross that point somehow, and then we see that it bounces because it's an even multiplicity, and we cannot go past this asymptote because there's not another point, so we'd have to keep approaching infinity upwards. Now, we look and see after -3 on this info wave, it's below the x-axis. So we would have to start down here, and then we have to approach 5 and cross through 5 because it's not an even multiplicity, and we can't cross this because we're approaching infinity and there's not another point, so it would just keep going beyond and outward. And that is how you graph rational equations. Thank you so much for watching.